Hi, it's Brian Larsen again. I'm back with part 3 of my executive series on what's wrong with customer functions at most companies that I've worked with. I started 2 weeks ago outlining the 4 areas that I think are wrong around clarity, fit, value, and cost. And last week we took a deep dive into clarity. Today I'm going to take a deep dive into fit. You should watch the other 2 as a precursor to this because it's really important. The first point I'd like to make is that there isn't a natural home for the customer function at your company. Now, maybe you're a large, fully evolved company and you made a decision that you're going to have a chief customer officer or a chief experience officer. Fine. You've got a column there for an integrated part of your company to be focused on the customer. But getting from the beginning to there often takes a path through reporting directly to the CEO or in operations or in revenue or in marketing. I reported to all of those folks. Sometimes it can be a great marriage depending on the stage of your company and where you're trying to have an impact with your customer. Other times it can be a disaster. But without clarity in building that fit, the home where they live in the stage of your company is super important. I'm going to give you an example. The second point I'm making here is about indexing and how customer professionals tend to index on one specialty and not build that custom fit for your company and your customer. I read this article every year, sometimes multiple times a year. I read it years ago for the first time. It's with Krista Collins, the woman who built the Squarespace support department in the early days of Squarespace. And there's some real gems in there. One that I really like, she says, pick one channel and nail it. Genius in the simplicity. If you're on your phones, chat, email, pick the channel and nail it. Just genius. But when it comes to this indexing thing, in building the custom fit, there's a conversation there in this interview, and I'll put the link in the comments below, in which she talks about finding out that the sweet spot for Squarespace customers was about 5 to 7 interactions. That is, some small business would come to her, let's say it's a fashion boutique, and they would ask something like, what's the best template for my fashion line? And as an expert, Squarespace would say, oh, your competitors or similar products are being sold in these 3 templates are the most popular. Great. I've got expertise from you. You've answered my question. Great. But they learned that the next question would be, how do I set up an e-commerce store so that I can get payments? How do I do my SEO? What are your options for support for my customers? And they started to answer those questions in advance. They started to put people on a path to give them the answer to the questions they knew they were going to ask. They knew their customer. And they built a custom fit for their business and their customer. Sounds simple. It's not done. Most places, most customer professionals copy and paste some version of what they did before onto your company, including the technology, the structure, the naming convention for the employees, all of it. It's not a custom fit. And so for part of this, you need to get back to basics, and that's the third point. Customer priorities have not changed. They interview customers over and over every few years, and for decades it's been the same. They want the same 3 things. Speed, accuracy, don't pass me around. Now, personalization is starting to come in there, and that lends itself to that Squarespace analogy. You need to know your customer a little bit. You need to understand the next question they're going to ask or where they're coming from so you can provide the speed, accuracy, don't pass me around with a little bit of insight into who they are and what they're actually asking. But what do we measure? Okay, first reply time, first resolution time. I can't tell you how many support departments, for instance, I've seen with tiered structure. Oh, it's escalated to tier 2 and the SLA was met of like under 4 hours. Speed, right? No, you didn't give me an answer. You did pass me around. And your answer wasn't accurate because you didn't have one. How many times have you been on the phone or in a chat with a customer service rep and they're clearly reading a script and they don't have the answer and you have to find a way to get escalated to somebody who does? Now, I'm a customer professional. I know how to talk to folks in a way that disarms them and sort of makes them understand that I know they're reading a script and they're limited in what they can do. And when you get that expert, solve your problem like that. Or if they can't solve their problem, they tell you why you're stuck, where you're stuck, and what your options are. And even if that's not solving my problem, I've got an accurate answer. And that's what I'm looking for. But we don't measure the things that customers care about. We're not indexed on them, or we've so badly misinterpreted them. We think like escalating from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 is speed or accuracy. It's not. It's internal process, not customer caring process, not what the customer cares about. And part of that is the fourth point, and I think this wraps it all into a nice bow, is that your customer function is alienated from the ethos, the rhythm, and the value of your company. I've said it in the previous talk, if you're running Scrum Agile or Lean Agile, why isn't your customer team running the same? Because if they're not, they become a consumer of your product as well. They're no longer the advocate to the customer and the voice of the customer back to the company in a sort of seamless synergy there. They're a receiver of information and a translator of information. It's naturally disjointed. They're alienated from how your company functions. You need to bring them in. And so you need a fit. You need a home for them to live in that is probably progressing. Operations, revenue, fully fledged customer function. They need to be indexed on the things that are important to your company and your customer, customized for your business, not copy and paste. They need to be prioritizing what customers care about, and not just in a framework that lets us rubber stamp it and say, oh, our reply time is fast, but something that says, this is what the customer cares about, and here's how we've evolved to make that fit happen. And then they need to be a part of the company. They need to be a fit inside the company. How do you get that done? We'll talk about it next week. Value is next week, because if you have a custom fit, you can deliver value. And I'll show you how next week. Thanks for stopping by. As always, find me on larsenbridge.com. You can consult with me at any time for free, no catch, ever. I'll link that Squarespace support article in the comments below, and I'll catch you next week where we talk about value.